Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Beauvais and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
Well, some of you out there may have remembered the old show, Kids in the Hallway. Kids in the Hall. Was it the Kids in the Hall, I think? That's how I think it's called Kids in the Hall. It's like it was just like a Saturday Night Live type of show, I think, but kind of some dry humor and everything. Anyway, we are two reporters in a hallway here at One Bills Drive. Sal Capaccio, Matt Beauvais, become a tradition here to have a hallway episode on a Wednesday as the Bills go through a walkthrough. We hear from Sean McDermott, and now we're going to go out to talk to players after they have their walkthrough. But some injury updates from McDermott. Let's get everybody updated. Taylor Rapp, Christian Benford, Matt Milano. From what Sean McDermott said, give me your take on all three.
Best news, Christian Benford. He's in concussion protocol, but he will be a limited participant today. That is a very good sign. It's usually hard to get out of concussion protocol in 1 week, but this is a similar trajectory to what we saw from Ray Davis last week. So I think the fact that he's limited on Wednesday is a good sign for his potential availability on Sunday. The middle one would be Matt Milano to me. Hamstring soreness is how Sean McDermott explained it. Usually with a hamstring, you would anticipate a player misses a game or two. You don't mess around with hamstrings. It's the playoffs, though, and the fact that he's also limited today, I'll say, is more good news than bad news. That's at least my read on it.
He also said, as you said, soreness. He added, I'm not sure it's an injury, or I don't know if it's an injury, but there's soreness. Mm-hmm. I think that's important because if it's a hamstring injury versus soreness, we are talking about a little bit more long-term maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that was his way of kind of giving it a bit more of a positive outlook, but also at the same time, you got to wonder if he's trying to play games with the Chiefs and like make them prepare for something that might not be available. But I do think that it's more good news than bad news. And then Taylor Rapp will not practice today. He is day-to-day with a hip injury. He was carted off the field 3 days ago. The fact that it's day-to-day is good. I even hate just saying this because I'm not a get the cart ahead of the horse person, but it feels like it's probably a long shot this week, but if they win, maybe there's a chance he would be ready for the next game they play.
I agree with all of that. I'll also say that when it comes to safety, Sean McDermott was asked on Monday, is there any chance Micah Hyde could get elevated? If that's the case, he shot that down. Yeah. You're not going to see Micah Hyde on the field playing for the Buffalo Bills this week. I guess he did say there would be like a 1% chance later when asked, but that's not going to happen, folks. One other note on injuries. Bail Inspector is eligible to come off IR. IR designated return. They would open his 21-day window if that were the case. He doesn't have to be activated. But I did ask Sean about that. And the only reason I bring it up, look, we all remember what happened last year. Now you have this Milano thing you're dealing with. I get it from everybody out there. Every time I mention it, people say, well, Bail Inspector, you don't need him. Look, he's a special teams player and a depth piece, and it really does impact the roster. If you do activate him, you have to move somebody off the roster. That's why it's important, but just as a note for Bail Inspector. Okay, here we are on a Wednesday. It looks like everything's pretty clean on the injury side for the Chiefs. Andy Reid said basically that, they got out pretty healthy. So thinking about the Chiefs in that respect, looking back at week 11 when the two teams played, what is your biggest concern about the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs Sunday as of right now?
Ooh, that's a good question. My biggest concern. I would say my biggest concern for the Bills is one of the reasons the Chiefs have not been as dynamic of an offense this year has been their inability to have a ton of success on third down, and they're just not as good in the red zone as they once were. And those are two areas where I'm not sure how much I trust the Bills defense. Third down is huge. The Ravens had some success on third downs. Now, the Bills covered it up because of the takeaways. You're not going to get 3 takeaways against the Kansas City Chiefs. You're just not going to. I believe Mahomes' last interception was in Buffalo in week 11.
Might have been their last turnover.
Might have been their last turnover as well. So, I don't think you can count on that. Now, I would have probably said something similar a week ago, but I thought it was just given Lamar and the playoffs and the fact that it was in Orchard Park, it was like, hey, maybe you get 1. Never would have thought 2 or even 3 like we ultimately saw. So I think you've got to be more efficient on third down, and that to me is a concern. And if you aren't efficient on third down, then you better be good in the red zone. You better hold them to a couple field goals when they drive down the field.
Yeah, I like all that. And part of that, too, for me is where I thought you were going to go, but you didn't, but I'll say it. One of the concerns for me is I do think Taylor Rapp would be a significant loss. And here's why. The Chiefs have really not been able to manufacture downfield plays as much this year. taken a few shots. It just hasn't worked out. It seems like they're not on the same page. We saw them take a couple shots against the Bills, even when they came to Buffalo in week 11, didn't work out. I think if the Bills have to go with Cole Bishop and DeMar Hamlin, I think with the Chiefs, the way they've been using Worthy lately and with DeAndre Hopkins, Matt, I think they're going to take some of those shots. And it just worries me. It concerns me that, man, all it takes is a couple Patrick Mahomes deep shots, and now suddenly the game is different.
Well, I think about the deep shot to Nico Collins in Houston with Cole Bishop on the field. I think about the sort of deep shot to Rashad Bateman after Taylor Rapp left the game against the Ravens. That is an area where they have had success. The touchdown that the Ravens scored at the end of the game. Like, these are plays where I understand he's buying time, but Patrick Mahomes is a similar player. He can buy time. I think that it's a concern if the defensive line can't win. Yeah. And the defensive line has to win this week.
And they can.
And they can win.
But they better.
Yeah. That's going to be not the biggest difference maker for me, but we have talked about the Bills getting bounced in the playoffs because their defensive line has been far too inconsistent. This Chiefs offensive line isn't terrible, but it's not good. There should be winnable matchups here. And if this is an Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones game, the Bills can absolutely win.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you could look back in 21, they lose the 13 seconds game, and all the talk was, boy, if you just could have got Mahomes down on the ground one more time, maybe that doesn't happen. You get to 22 at home against Cincy, and there was just nothing from the DI. That was just a flat-out zero from that group in that game. And then last year, same thing against Mahomes. They just couldn't get to him. Now, part of that was the Chiefs actually ran a lot of 3 tight ends last year in the playoff game in Buffalo. They bullied the Bills. They big boyed them, and the Bills had no answer. I think the Chiefs could employ a similar strategy, but I would like to think my chances are better this time around after what I just saw the Bills handle against the Ravens.
Yeah, I think so too. I think for the Bills, I trust if Christian Benford plays, even though Russell Douglas has been a bit inconsistent probably since the middle of the season. Really, the Rams game was when you started to notice that there was a bit of inconsistency there. I don't think this is a game that the Chiefs really want to win on the boundary. I feel like that's an area where the Bills are pretty good. So I do feel like this is going to be a Watson game. This is going to be a Kelsey game. This is going to be whatever running back, probably Pirine, that they want to use in the past, right? You think about all the playoff games in the past. It's like, Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Pacheco and all these guys. So I feel like that's going to probably be where they try and attack the Bills. If you have Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, and Taron Johnson, you are going to be better there than you otherwise. I mean, think about the game last year, right? AJ Klein and Balin Spector and all of these guys that the Bills did not have. They're going to have success. Like, the Chiefs are going to score points. They're going to sustain drives. They're going to get have they gone over 30 this year? Like, in a while, right?
They have. Here's what they've done. Let's take a look. They have not hit. They hit 30. They have not gone over 30. They hit 30 against Tampa. That was an overtime game, I believe. They hit 30 against Carolina. They have not gone over 30.
So here's my thing. Let's say they get to 30. Let's say that they have.
They also they've only given up 30 one time. That's to the Bills.
Let's say they get to 30, right? And I know they've only given up 30 once. I feel like the Bills can have some success. I don't think this is a shootout, right? I think when you look at the two championship games this week, like, for the Commanders to beat the Eagles, they got to go score points. They got to go score like 35 points. For the Bills to beat the Chiefs, you're going to need a couple big splash plays. But I think the Bills will be able to, we had our conversation with Haley yesterday. They're not going to change their identity now. They're going to put an extra lineman on the field. They're going to try and run the ball. They're going to try and take time off the clock. And that's going to be the game they play.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it hasn't this season, Matt, been about the fact the Bills can win different ways? Like how hasn't been the case over the last few years. It's been about they got to have Josh Allen put on the cape and all that. Boy, I remember week 1 going into the year, and on the Buffalo Bills radio network, Chris Brown did an interview with Brandon Beane. And there's a pregame interview, and his interview was Brandon Beane. And Chris Brown, this is going into the Arizona game week 1. Chris Brown said, have you had any surprises coming out of training camp? Brandon's like, I don't know about a surprise. He said, but you know what? It really always stuck with me. He said, I think this is the best running back room we've had since I've been here. Now we advance 20 weeks later. And I think what he meant there and what is coming to fruition, Matt, is the Bills can win a game like that. Yeah. They won a game like that against Baltimore last week is how they won that game. But look what they did against Denver and the number 1 run defense, the number 2 run defense in respective weeks. Chiefs defense, very good against the run. But as I pointed out with Haley yesterday, they've been leaky over the last month. I think the Bills want to control the game up front.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that the reason the Bills' run game has been so effective is, of course, the usage of an extra offensive lineman certainly helps, but the Bills can also pass out of that. So it's not like teams completely commit to trying to stop the run because they don't want to be hit for one of those jumbo package play action fakes that the Bills have done Also, their running backs have different skill sets. Like, I remember watching back the Ravens game and seeing how effective Ray Davis was and thinking in my head, man, I want him getting more snaps. But how do you get him to him? Because that means you're taking James Cook off the field or you're taking Ty Johnson off the field. Right. And you don't want to take – that's a good problem to have because you have 3 guys who can be effective. So, I mean, they didn't run the ball great against the Chiefs earlier in the regular season, but I think they'll have a little bit more success there this time around.
Bills in the regular season game, you're right, only Josh Allen, 12 for 55. But let's remember that in this game, 9 for 20 for James Cook, 5 for 18 for Ty Johnson, Ray Davis 5 for 11, 2 yards a carry, 2.4 yards a carry, I think, amongst the group.
Also, we talk about, and it's easy to, because the Bills have had a lot of success this year, it's easy to look back and say, whoa, the Chiefs are a lot healthier than they were earlier in the season. I agree with that. But when you recognize who the Bills were missing in that game also, they played that game without Spencer Brown. So not having your starting right tackle.
Also without their number 1 pass-catching tight end, Dalton Kincaid.
Exactly. So the list right here, shout out to Thad Brown, because he posted it last night, and I was like, wow, I completely forgot about how banged up the Bills were. The Bills played the first Chiefs game without Milano, Spencer Brown, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, and Dwayne Smoot. Those were all very important players. Now, the Chiefs did not have Pacheco, Hollywood Brown, Jalen Watson, Amenahu, and Harrison Butker. I would say it's probably a wash, right? Like it's pretty close to who was more decimated and banged up. Having Spencer Brown, I think, will help the run game be better. And also having Dalton Kincaid, because shout out Mina Kimes, who I was just looking this up. She said the Chiefs have the 32nd success rate in the NFL against tight ends this year. So that is an area where the Bills should be looking. With Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, perhaps there are plays to be had, especially if you were going to try and throw out of your jumbo package.
Matt mentioned Haley Lewis. She joined us from Bleacher Report and KC Sports Network. You can find that at Sal Sports on YouTube. And, of course, wherever you pod, we put that up yesterday. So check that out. In the meantime, we asked for your questions at Sal Sports and at Matt_Move on the hallway episode. We have this one coming in. Do you have confidence in Bishop and Dorian Williams in huge game like this? I would say this. This game is far different than last game. I am number 1 worried about Taylor Rapp missing. I have confidence in Cole Bishop, but against Patrick Mahomes, I think he would definitely test that safety group. And I also think Dorian Williams is fine in this matchup, except maybe in coverage I'd be a little worried about, right? Like that's where you're, but I think otherwise, I think this is a different matchup than playing Lamar Jackson. And they're going to put a spy on. If you don't have Matt Milano, it probably is Dorian Williams every once in a while. He's done that before, but in the run game, you don't have to sell out in this game.
No, I think that if Kareem,
that question, by the way, came from Aiden. Thank you, Aiden.
If Kareem Hunt, so Haley told us yesterday that since Pacheco has come back from injury, Kareem Hunt has actually been the more dynamic runner. Pacheco will still get his, but Pacheco really hurt the Bills in the playoff game last year. If Kareem Hunt is the guy who is torching you, that's a problem, right? So I'm not saying the Bills need to forget about stopping the run because we've seen that happen this year, but it's Travis Kelce, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Hopkins, it's Hollywood Brown. Like those are going to be Xavier Worthy. Those are going to be the guys that I think the Bills will really need to focus on. And I feel like if they're able to do that and it gives them a bit more success in the passing game, then you have to live with the running backs getting maybe 4.5 yards a clip. You just got to put them behind the chains on early downs. You got to do what you did in the first half against the Ravens. A lot easier said than done, but that was one of the reasons the Bills were able to get ahead. They were stopping Derrick Henry for short yardages, and it was putting it as 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 7 and stuff.
All right. AJ asks, is this the makeup and identity of the team this year? What Sean McDermott has always envisioned as a coach? And if so, why is it working? I do think so. He's always wanted to be very balanced and protect the football. That's what they've done.
Yeah, I think remember all of the stuff about Brian Daboll and Sean McDermott not seeing eye to eye at times because it felt like Sean wanted to be more balanced. And then there was the contingent of fans who understandably so were like, why do you want balance? You have Josh Allen. Like, just go let him do cool stuff. And like, that's going to be what wins you games. And that's why we have seen the most efficient version of Josh Allen this year. I would imagine they would probably want to have an offense that has a little bit more explosiveness. Like they don't have explosive plays a ton. And I think that keeps a really like a defense in a tough situation, but their ability to sustain drives continuously and take time off the clock and impose their will on an opposing team is, surely what every football coach probably wants.
Steven asks, is Joe Brady still in the lead running for any head coach gigs? And we will tell you, well, actually, as of today, his name popped up again with the Jaguars by Jeremy Fowler because the Jags were turned down essentially by Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers. And I guess there's some history there between, Joe Brady with people in that organization. So, I mean, look, I don't know. we'll see how it goes, but that has been the latest.
Maybe the best thing for the Bills in order to keep Joe Brady is winning this game.
Yep.
If you win this game, I don't see the Jags waiting another 3 weeks to fill their head coaching job, or the Saints or the Jets or any of those other teams that are out there looking for a head coach. I know Saleh has been somebody that they have talked to a little bit as well. So if you're the Bills, you want to win for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, you want to go to a Super Bowl, but it also might protect your offensive coordinator from getting a job at least this time around. But I was thinking, would he do what Ben Johnson did? Would he did what Cohen is doing, where he's like, you know what? I don't love the opportunity. I'm going to wait and pick something a little bit differently. I don't know if he would.
I don't know either, but the reason why the Jags apparently are getting turned down is just kind of a lot of signaling going on. They're not comfortable with Trent Baalke as GM, or the setup with Trent Baalke as GM, whatever it is, the person or the way the organization is set up. That seems to be the case. And obviously, if Joe Brady got offered that job, he'd have the decision to make. Worth noting, the New Orleans Saints also interviewed Joe Brady. They have yet to hire a head coach. It looks like Aaron Glenn might be on his way to be the head coach of the Jets as we record this. We'll see. Is
there an update there?
Yeah, there was. He did. But as of today, Josina Anderson reported that all signs are pointing towards that getting momentum, basically, something like that. Okay. But then again, he's not there. So I know.
Remember Mario Watch? Don't let him leave the building. Mario Williams.
But he did.
Yeah, but he left the building. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it stands, but apparently there's some momentum thinking that. And now reporters are thinking who could be the offensive coordinator and special teams. So they're going down that road. Okay. Donald and Bills backers of KC asked us where our favorite barbecue spots are in Kansas City. Ooh. So, I mean, there's so many great to choose from, right? Joe's Barbecue, and you have Q39. Yeah. I don't know if there's any others that you want to. I don't know if there's a specific one, but listen, Kansas City barbecue is great. It really is great.
Yeah, Slaps is good. Jack Stack was pretty good.
Jack Stack, yes.
Arthur Bryant's is, of course, the one that everybody knows, but that's like their. I don't want to say their anchor bar because, that's not like a perfect comparison, but that's the one that I think made a lot of it famous. I am actually heading out to Kansas City. I'm glad you brought up that question. So I'm heading out to Kansas City Thursday morning, first thing. So depending on when you're listening to this, I might already be on my way to Kansas City. So definitely shoot me a message or, slide into the DMs for like Bills stories that are going on or Bills fans that are heading down. I'm going to be down there with a news reporter from Channel 7, and then Dom Tibbetts is coming down. So we're going to, make sure we cover the crap out of this AFC Championship game.
Okay, so thank you for that. Matt Bovey will be headed down there. Lord Helmet, did Allen play with the flu or other sickness on Sunday? I was informed he played sick is what he said. I don't know who informed you of that. I don't know. Did you notice anything in the press conference the way he was talking? Any different?
No, I didn't notice anything differently. So, I mean, maybe, but
it's the flu game if so, right?
Yeah, right.
Who knows? I don't know. He's better now, hopefully, if that's the case. I really don't know.
Yeah, everybody's battling something this time of year.
That's why I got this little beanie on my head, to be quite honest with you. All right, this is a good question, actually. I get this a lot. I think you do too. Let me try to explain this best I can. Dave says, why did they sign Hyde to the practice squad instead of just hiring him as a coach? Well, here's my answer. Micah Hyde doesn't want to be a coach. He's a player. He wants to play, and he wanted to be a part of this team, and they wanted a part of this team to help out on a daily basis in a lot of capacities. But being a player on the practice squad, he can do a lot of things. He understands football better than so many people here, where if you say, this is what they do, okay, let me show you. I'll give you the look here. I mean, that's the value of having a Micah Hyde. It's not just, it's primarily locker room, helping out, the culture, and being down this road before, all those kinds of things. But it's also, Matt, he can help you on the field on scout team because he understands all the nuances of maybe a certain position where if they want a guy to give a look, he can do it.
And we also don't know if this is exactly what they envisioned. Maybe they envisioned him coming back and playing, and then after watching him for a week or two, they were like, man, he lost a lot of weight. I just don't know if it's a good idea to have him in that situation, but let's take advantage of him in the ways that we can now that he is back. So I understand that, like, I was the guy conducting the Micah Hyde train for a long time. This is not exactly what I envisioned, to be honest. I didn't think that he was ever going to come in and be an every down starter for the Buffalo Bills in their safety position, but I thought we might see him occasionally. I was like, oh, on a third and long, maybe bring in that ball hawk guy who isn't going to get beat off over the top. Maybe he came in, was a little bit light, and they were like, you know what? Like, we're not going to make you risk an injury, but we're so grateful that you're here, because I can tell you, from just the conversations I've had and even what I've witnessed, he is working so closely with the guys in that safety room about technique, about strategy, and he is a big reason why that is a position that has shored itself up a little bit over the course of the last month or so.
Yeah, and that sounds like a coach, right? But you don't have to be a coach to do that. They have coaches. He's not preparing necessarily like a coach would for that message to be brought out the same way. And Dave, as I say, he doesn't want to coach. I'm saying right now, like he doesn't want to coach. He wants to be here. Maybe next year things change, and maybe Micah Hyde wants to embark on a coaching career. All right, Eric Allen asks us, good question. Aside from Josh Allen, which player needs to have the biggest game for the Bills to win on Sunday?
That's a fantastic question.
Okay, so I'll give mine on offense.
Yeah, let's each do an offense and a defense.
Okay, I'm going to give mine on offense. I'm going to say James Cook.
Okay.
See, I took yours, didn't I?
I will say.
Okay, because I think James Cook, we've seen him in the passing game against the Chiefs before. Remember last year down the seam, and we've seen him really running well. Right now, James Cook is playing good football. And if James Cook can control, if they can control this game running it with him, I mean, I think that goes a long way for a Bills win.
Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is going to be my guy.
You're going with the Mina Kimes theory here.
Well, I think Dawson Knox has had success against the Chiefs, relatively speaking. That was more when they had Stephon Diggs and they had Gabe Davis. But, you know, he had a couple catches earlier in the year. He had the touchdown that sealed the win a few years ago. So he has been a player who's had success. But I feel like I had the theory before the playoffs that they were saving Dalton Kincaid, and that clearly is not true. Because you would not be saving things up until the AFC Championship. You're doing everything you can to get to this point. So I don't think they've been saving him. But if it is a favorable matchup, I want to see what he can do in the passing game because he could be a potential mismatch for the way that the Chiefs play defense. So I am not going to say he is going to have the Travis Kelce game where he has 120 yards and a touchdown, but I wonder if there's a couple plays that he can make that are the ultimate difference between a win and a loss.
All right, this one is
defense.
Yeah. This one is okay. Well, sorry about that. That's right. From the defensive side,
I got a guy.
Go ahead.
Daquan Jones. Daquan Jones is my guy because Daquan Jones last year gets injured, comes back for the playoffs, and one of the things I'm not trying to make this like Ed Oliver is a fantastic player.
I would have chosen Ed Oliver, by the way.
My point was going to be when Daquan Jones is going, we see the best version of Ed Oliver. I don't feel like they always have to be in tandem, but when Daquan is kind of clogging things up and chewing that up, that's when Ed goes out and balls.
Yeah. So, and this is why I actually wanted to read this because I was going to choose Ed Oliver specifically for this question from Koala Bear Khan. Thoughts on the Chiefs having Tooney at left tackle? Will that impact their interior protection? And I think it can. Yeah. And look, my choice for defense would be give me one guy in the D line to just wreck, right? Like I need one guy. It could be Rousseau. It could be Von Miller. But if you get somebody from the interior to really push the pocket, you know, and I think that would go a long way, towards a Bills victory. And then finally, on the other side, I'll have to get who asked this question, but someone had a very good question about who to stop on the Chiefs side besides Patrick Mahomes. Here we go. But anyway, I'll look to see exactly who asked it, but who is here you go. Mike, besides Kelce, which KC player do you think deserves the most attention from the Bills defense? And of course, not Mahomes, sorry, but not Kelce either. Who else?
Xavier Worthy.
Me too.
Xavier Worthy for a lot of reasons. One, doesn't it feel like the horror story of Monday could be that Xavier Worthy makes this huge play? How did the Bills let the team get him that ultimately sent them home packing? That's the, like worst case scenario for the Bills. But I also just think he's been more involved, and he does have oodles of speed, tons of speed. He was a player we were all very familiar with in the draft process because we thought he could make sense for Buffalo. If you're without Taylor Rapp and you're talking about potentially getting beat from behind, like how about the guy who might be the fastest player in the NFL? So I would say, bless you, I would say Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with that. Xavier Worthy would have been my choice as well. They're going to give it to him in a lot of different ways, and I think Andy Reid would love nothing more than to actually get him. I predicted before they played he was going to score a touchdown. They're going to try to get him a touchdown, and he did against the Bills the last time they played. I wouldn't be surprised. But hey, if the Chiefs are focused on that, maybe that helps out the Bills. All right, Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. if you're going to Kansas City, because, of course, they're on Central Time. We're going to have another episode coming your way at some point before then. Matt's going to be heading out. I'll obviously be there on the sidelines for the game. And this is, by the way, okay, no injuries report for the Chiefs today, and obviously that's
you said earlier.
Yeah, exactly right. So this is I was just thinking the other day, and I had mentioned this, I think, on the radio. I've not covered a championship game. The last time this happened, the Bills were in Kansas City. It was the COVID year. We did the game from the Bills press box here, the radio booth here. Did not go to the game. You were there though, right?
Yes, I was there. And it was, I said earlier, and I told this to you, that it always felt like going into that game, that the Bills could win, but I don't know if I thought
Had to be a big upset, though, right?
It wasn't like a huge upset. I think they were like a 3.5 point favorite or underdog or something. So I felt like they could win, but they were a little ahead of schedule. And then after the game, my message was, I understand that people are very upset, but sometimes you need to learn how to win, and the Bills still have to learn that. It took longer to get back to this point than I ultimately thought when I said that 4 years ago. I didn't think that it was going to be another 4 years until they were in the AFC Championship. But yeah, the one thing I'll say is I don't think the stage scares them at all. I think that they almost embrace it, and I think that's the mindset you need to have.
We'll talk with players today. Stay with us here, Matt _ Bove, and of course WKBW TV. Yep.
How are you feeling? Because we talked about the Ravens a ton last week. Like, how do you feel about the matchup, about the Bills' chances? I'm not saying like give me a prediction, but we did this a lot with the Ravens last week and with the Broncos. We kind of gave you like where we were standing as the week progressed. So it's Wednesday. Okay. How do you feel right now?
Feeling better, I think, as the week goes on. I think once I get down here, I start to get in the routine. I feel a little bit better about their chances. And I'm going to say this. I just think the Bills are actually the better team. I just get scared of them all of a sudden. Remember I asked you what concerns you? I'm going to tell you what concerns me. They have been so good at turnovers this year and protecting the football, and that's how they've won. And I've questioned all year, is that sustainable? And here we are in the AFC Championship game. It has been sustainable. All it takes is that one game, and it goes the other way, and you lose. And that's what concerns me, because all it takes is a bad ball here, a bounce there, a pitch, a handoff, a throw, a tip ball. I mean, maybe they keep it rolling. They win the turnover battle 4-1. Or if they don't, I mean, that's all it takes. Yeah. And that's what happened to the Ravens last week.
I'll tell you this, and this is what I actually told my wife today. She had a snow day today, and we were talking about the game and everything before I left. And she, she's a Bills fan, understandably so. So she was asking me how I felt. And I told her, this will change probably 3 times before the end of the week. I told her my brain says that the Bills are going to win, but my gut tells me that the Chiefs are going to win. And she says, what do you usually trust? And I was like, it depends on the week. Yeah. So I feel like deep down, if you think about the matchups, there are matchups that can be had that would lead the Bills to having success in this game. But I have watched their season end against the Chiefs 3 times in the last several years, 2 of those at Arrowhead in kind of heartbreaking fashion, and then last year as well. So it's almost like I need to see it happen before I can believe that it'll happen, even though I know that they can win this game.
Well, we don't have a snow day. We're going out to practice here. Yeah. Follow along at Matt _ Bove, WKBW TV, at Sal Sports, and of course, not only on X, but also on YouTube, where you can watch us. We'll be back with another episode later this week as we say goodbye from the hallway outside the media room at One Bill.